I'm Dana Holgorsen. When disaster strikes your home or business, tell your insurance provider you prefer the restoration company the Mountaineers call. Panhandle Cleaning and Restoration. Nothing like facing another top 15 opponent. Really excited about that. This one's Iowa State's. They're playing well. I mean, it's very well documented. Everybody that watches any TV or gets on Twitter or whatever understands what they've done the last the last month. You know, ever since that Thursday night game against Texas, they're sitting there at 2-2. You know, and then had the quarterback change, headed Oklahoma. I mean, that's not a very favorable situation for anybody, and they've done nothing but have success since then. So, you know, give them all the credit in the world. Give their coaches credit, their players credit, the whole program credit for being in a situation where they're sitting here at 6-2 and 13th, 14th in the country or whatever it is, and very deservingly so. You know, lost a tough one to Iowa early, which that one can always go back and forth. But you know, and then the Texas situation that we all watched. But since then, they've played so good. The win at Oklahoma, as we know, is extremely hard. Shutting out Kansas, you know, winning in Lubbock, which is always hard, and then basically shutting out TCU. So, you know, playing well as a whole team, not just one side. They're playing well as a whole team. You look offensively, nobody takes care of the ball better than they are. You know, since they've made the switch to Kemp, who we recruited him, know a lot about him, big, tall guy that can throw the ball extremely well from Massillon, Ohio, but does a great job of taking care of the ball, just doesn't screw up. He's got 3 or 4 6'4", 6'5", 6'6" receivers that he can throw to that they high point a lot. Obviously, the one that everybody knows about is Lazard's been there for a decade, it seems like. But they got more than just him that they can throw to. They got, you know, a couple other big, tall guys that are starting to come onto the scene. Big tight end, the Allen kid, I think is going to be a really good player. The Ryan kid, number 19. Is an interesting story. That guy makes all kinds of plays. Is their best special teams player, best punt returner I've seen since Wes Welker, and that's not an exaggeration. So he's dynamic with everything that he does. Covers punts. Has, I think, pinned 5 inside the 5. So just as a good all-around player that does a lot of good things. It starts with their running back. Montgomery is as good as I've seen, has made more people miss and has broke more tackles than I've seen yet this year, and we've played a lot of good backs. So you know, they give it to him about 20 times a game. And then they got Warren backing him up, which everybody would like to have him as well. So big up front, you know, play hard. It's the same. You know, it's the same story regardless of what side you're saying with them. They're well coached. They have a lot of older guys that have bought into what they're doing, and they're playing very mistake-free, very smart football. Don't get penalized, number 1 in the league in penalties, number 1 in the league in lack of turnovers, turnover margin, that sort of thing. Obviously, a ton of improvement on defense. You know, they're multiple with what they do. You know, they get into 4 down fronts, they get into 3 down fronts. You know, they'll move their people all around, create confusion. They drop 8 a lot. Probably, you know, big, thick guys up front that just hold gaps and play their tail off. You know, everybody wants to talk about the story with Joel Lanning, which is deservingly so. I mean, that guy's got to, at this point, have played more snaps in college football than anybody ever. With how much he's played offensively, which now how much he's played defensively. He plays special teams as well. It's a great story, deservingly so, and is just a ton of tackles. The guy next to him, the Spears kid's been Big 12 Defensive Player of the Week, twice? So he's all over the place and makes a ton of tackles as well. Their safeties, all fifth-year seniors. You know, Edwards and Wilkerson, and the one everybody wants to talk about, the Cotton Moya, they're all 3 the same, and they'll run, and they're sure tacklers, and they're tough, and they cover well. they're not giving up any yards or points. So that's that. Special teams wise, best collectively, the best specialists we've faced collectively, they are. Their punter, hits it exactly where they want him to hit it. Operation time's unbelievable. Place kickers, almost perfect. He's missed a couple of field goals that missed by this much, so he's solid. The kickoff guy kicks it in the end zone. Mentioned the punt returner. The kickoff guys, Warren, and their coverage units are as good as can be. Very sound, very smart, very tough, very, just an overall really good football team. So we got some work to do. We've got to play well, and we've got to improve on the things that we didn't do well last week if we want to win this game. I know our guys will be motivated to play, motivated to practice, to get a couple of things fixed, to where we can go out there and we can compete hard and get a victory this Saturday, which we fully expect to do. Questions?
Danny, you turn on the tape of Iowa State. Is it anything fancy, or they just do what they do really well?
Nah, they're well coached. That group's been together for a while. I know that it's second year at Iowa State, but the majority of them came over from Toledo, and it's just a bunch of Ohio guys that really good football coaches. Matt's his pedigree everybody knows. I mean, he's grown up in it and does a great job. Had a lot of his guys that came with him to develop this. I mean, they're multiple offensively. They want to run the ball. They shift a lot. They motion a lot. They create matchups. They got big receivers that they can make plays when they're covered. They're well coached. Defensively, they get into a bunch of different things and get guys in the right position. They're disciplined with what they do. Iowa State's always kind of been that team. They've always kind of been a very hard-working, disciplined, overachieving bunch. You add that with some top-end players. You add that with really good coaching. A lot of fifth-year seniors. You have the makings of a good football team. That's what they are, is a good football team.
You always say you try not to get too high when you win or too low when you lose. How do you approach coming out of last week?
I would think determined. I mean, if you can't be determined to get out there and coach harder and play harder and practice harder and get to a point where you play harder then why you do it? I mean, that was we got beat. They beat us. My assessment of not having the right mentality, and I always kind of pinpoint the run game just because that's where you can kind of see it on the stat sheet. But there's examples everywhere for every position of not having the right mentality that you need to win. Everything's. I mean, the first thing back there on that thing is toughness. It's the number one. I don't care what program you're talking about. Yeah, I could argue it's probably doesn't really matter what sport you talk about. If you don't have that, then you're going to have a hard time being successful. And you can look at everything that happened from blocking to tackling to sustaining blocks to getting off blocks to running hard, not running hard. Yeah, all that stuff. We didn't play as hard as we need to. Bottom line. And then it gets into the turnover aspect of it. I mean, it's good to get turnovers, and we did a good job of forcing some turnovers. Can argue we forced 5 with the block punt. I mean, there are some things that happen, but if you don't have the right mentality to be able to take that and play football, then you're not gonna be able to capitalize on that stuff. So I would think determined. I'm as anxious as anybody to see the determination of our team moving forward.
And how much of your job is the mental part, and where do you get the expertise from, as a coach?
20 years of coaching, it kind of does it. Spending more time with it now than I did when all I worried about was drawing plays and getting first downs. Part of the CEO aspect of it is the overall mentality of your whole team. You know, so, you know, there's individuals that you need to spend a little bit more time with, but just messaging moving forward is going to be important.
Did you talk about toughness? You've done that for a few weeks. How do you instill that 2/3 of the way through the season, get it to where you want it to be?
I don't know. Go out and practice is the only way I know how to. So things have been addressed with staff and with the expectations of each and every one of their players. All starts with me. I got to be in the right frame of mind when this meeting starts here in a couple hours, and you know how we teach and you know, go outside and prepare. You know, got to get out there and work hard. There's no easy way to do it. Roll the sleeves up and get out there and practice your tail off. That's about it.
When Will and some of the guys aren't as clued in as they've been all year, there seemed like there were a couple plays, you know, balls were on the way and guys weren't looking. Is that just pressure disrupting it? Is in the rhythm getting off a little bit?
It's the same mentality I've been talking about. You know, that if you think for a minute having a mentally and physically tough football player, they run routes fast, they break off resistance, they attack the ball, they're fast. You know, then you have up front guys having to lock things down and create space to be able to make that throw. And then you can go as far as, and we put a lot on Will, there's no question, a lot on Will. You know, but there's a toughness that needs to exist with the quarterback in the pocket of setting your feet and being mentally tough and working the pocket like he's done great all year, and setting the feet with proper technique and throwing the ball like he knows how to throw. It's everybody. And if the whole team it was not in the right frame of mind mentally, that's 100% on me. So the timing that didn't exist with our pass game last week, and we could sit here and talk about the run game if you want to, you know what's going to come out of my mouth. There's a toughness that has to be able to exist in the passing game as well. You know, receivers got to line up the right way and come off the ball and fight through people that are going to try to cover you and attack the ball and create separation and keep your feet and go vertical. Didn't see that out of one of our receivers last week. They were every bit as bad as anybody up front when it came to having to protect or having to run block the appropriate way. There's nobody that I can excuse offensively. It's everybody that lined up.
So what do you see out of the run game?
It's us not being very physical or tough or whatever it is. And you can say, well, you know, that's because the O-line doesn't run block the way we want to. It does not stop there. My finger is not pointing at the five guys up front. It kind of starts there because you can really gauge it at the point of attack. And we can get to defense if you want. I can say the same thing about basically everybody on that side as well. You know, the point of attack is important, okay? But then there's an aspect of the running backs understanding things and hitting it the right way and running hard. And it's okay to break a tackle every now and then. The guy that we're about to face breaks a whole lot of them, you know, and get hit and move forward, right? And then there's receivers that are involved that, you know, once the back gets out kind of in the open, it's okay for those guys to run fast and put their hands on people and block people. That's how you spring people. So it's the same mentality. And again, this whole every bit of this is 100% on my shoulders. The way that we approach practice, the way that we go through practice, it needs to be better moving forward. I don't think we're far off. We've had that mentality a lot here over the last 3-4 years. And we did earlier in the year as well. We got to get it back now.
Last week you talked about Al-Rashid, but what about David Long?
I hate to sit here and talk bad about that kid. And I'm not talking bad about anybody. I'm just as a collectively, a whole group, the mentality that needs to exist. I mean, we've been bragging about David for quite some time. They had a great freshman year. Lost him in the summer, which we felt like we lost our, what we felt like was probably our best defensive player, and then he comes back, on time and probably took him a couple of weeks to kind of get his feet underneath him a little bit. And played outstanding. I mean, you can't block him. He keeps his feet, he's getting banged up and he still makes tackles. Outstanding performance for him. Probably need, and I've been bragging about Al all year, and Al's been playing well. There's 9 other positions out there that if those 9 other positions don't play like that, we're going to give up 50. But that's about the bottom line. You can't play defense with 1 or 2 guys. Can't. And everything starts up front. We got some young kids that need to. They need to not be young anymore. Which it's unfortunate, and it's hard to have to play with young guys. We need all those guys to play hard, play physical, be tough, grow up, man up. Starts up front, but then we need the back end to play better as well. Way too many missed tackles. Way too many guys stuck on blocks.
Dana, how many of your quarterbacks could play linebacker? Anybody come to mind?
Well, it wouldn't be Clint.
He was not number one.
He was not number 1. I hadn't had many. I think Skyler has that mentality. He had that mentality. I mean, he was tough and physical and smart and could run. The Lanning kid is a different breed. He's a different breed. Was tough at quarterback. If you're not tough at quarterback, I doubt you can have a chance of being tough at linebacker. But he everything I'm saying about the mentality that needs to exist, he clearly has it. Don't know him, but I'm assuming he's a pretty smart kid as well. Sees a lot. Probably we've talked a lot about David Sills, and his quarterback background allows him to be able to do some smart things, running routes. I'm sure that helps him as well. Just kind of seeing things and studying film, sees things happen probably before they happen, which I think Al has a lot of those qualities as well. High football IQ.
Dana, listening to you talk about the mentality stuff and how it's existed, I'm assuming that you expected it to happen this year, just kind of continuity. Did you have it and get away from it? Do you not have it? Are you not able to?
I don't have those answers, honestly. It's not like we've quit talking about it. I don't think that we've practiced a whole lot different. We got some inexperienced guys that need to grow up and do a little better. And it's an excuse that nobody wants to hear, but it hurts losing probably 6 fifth-year seniors that are O-line guys, D-line guys, especially over the course of the season. Probably showed last week for the first time.